Boy, do we have some updates to go over today. Before we get into today's video, I just want to let you guys know that this video is for educational purposes only. Please remember to be kind to everybody everywhere, in your everyday life, in your home, in the grocery store, and especially in the comment section down below. Please do not show hate to anybody, anywhere. So good morning, good morning, good morning. How is everybody doing today? I hope you all are having an amazing day. I hope you all have had a wonderful week. Hope everybody is feeling good. It is getting ready to be spring here and spring forward, and it's just a lot going on. So in today's video, we're going to be going over quite a few updates that has come out on the Idaho 4 case. And I've been watching things come out recently over the past few months, but after these last updates, we have got to go over them. Before we get into it, though, I did want to let you guys know, if you don't already know, hi, my name is Christina. I do have a second channel, which is Casually Christina. We just do things way more casually over there. I also have a Patreon. My Patreon's for 18 and up, and over there we talk about more personal stuff. We go live over there. There is a $2 tier for all the true crime stuff that cannot go onto YouTube due to their terms and policies. That goes over on my Patreon under the $2 tier. Just make sure you read the full about section of what each tier offers before you join. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Like to Know It. And Like to Know It is a platform you can find links to a lot of the things that y'all ask about, that I use, that I like, that I love. Everything from skincare, hair care, workout gear, cooking utensils, this top, this chair, earrings, just all kinds of stuff. I can post that over on my Like to Know It, and I do. And all of those platforms are linked down in the description box if you would like to come and check me out. Okay, so if y'all remember, in my last video that I did, we left off talking about how Bryan's defense team argued that law enforcement violated Bryan's constitutional rights by failing to get search warrants to analyze the DNA that was found at the scene and to analyze the DNA of potential relatives that had been submitted to a genealogy database. And you guys, oh my goodness. Bryan's defense asked that all of the DNA evidence be thrown out, okay? Their motion also included all of the cell phone and email records and surveillance footage and Bryan Kohberger's Amazon purchases and, of course, the physical DNA evidence that was found on the sheath. Well, at the end of February, Judge Hippler, which is the new judge, completely denied the defense's motion. And I think a lot of us were on pins and needles about that. There are people out there that are in support of Bryan and think that he's completely innocent that were very disappointed in that. So everything that I just mentioned as of now will be allowed during the trial. And I just want to throw something out there. For those of y'all that may not understand how important that was to the case, that little piece of DNA that was found on the knife sheath, okay? To break it down in layman's terms, and this is probably a good spot for me to let y'all know that all of this is alleged. I don't know any of these people. I am also not a professional. I am getting all of my information from very public sources, as well as watching the court proceedings. I'm filtering it through my own words and opinions, so go do your own research and form your own opinions. But the DNA that was found on the sheath, that they were able to trace it back to the genealogy website. As an example, 23andMe, Ancestry.com, right? The argument was basically like this. Bryan's defense team is telling the judge, listen, the police, the FBI went into these 23andMe type of websites and found his father or his uncle and matched it back to Bryan Kohberger's DNA, and that's how they found who he was. However, that wasn't illegal for them to do in the way that I'm seeing it. What they did was they broke his constitutional rights, because on these genealogy websites, they say on there that they promise basically not to share your DNA with any other outside sources. And so therefore the FBI went right on up in that database and found the DNA that matched. And so if Bryan is the guy, he hasn't been proven guilty yet, you can just only imagine. I mean, this guy is thinking like, I've never been arrested. I've never had my mouth swabbed for anything. They're not allowed to go in them 23andMe genealogy websites. They'll never catch me long as I don't ever get my DNA swabbed or get in trouble. Surprise! They did anyways. I mean, what are they supposed to do? Is the FBI supposed to actually go, okay, we're going to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of taxpayer dollars to do all of this research, but we're just not going to look inside this database because they promised that they wouldn't share it with us. So we'll do all of this stuff, but we won't look in there when you've got 4 innocent lives that have been lost. Please. Now, they didn't argue that that was not his DNA, which I found very interesting because when the whole DNA and how the police found the DNA and matched it to him came up, a lot of people were thinking that they planted his DNA and that it wasn't actually his DNA. That actually wasn't the argument. They never argued that that wasn't Bryan Kohberger's DNA on the knife sheath. They were upset that they went into this genealogy website that basically says on it, we pinky promise we're not going to share your information with anybody. And that's how they traced it back to him. So I was like, you know what, y'all? No. And mind you, had the defense been able to get that DNA thrown out because of the genealogy website's promise, basically, everything that connected Bryan Kohberger to the case after the DNA would have been able to be thrown out, like we just talked about. So do y'all remember that when the police or the FBI realized it was him and they followed him back to his home in Pennsylvania, where he got into the car with his dad and drove, okay? He got pulled over twice in the same state on the way there, never got a ticket or anything. The cops just kept pulling him over. They were trying to get him on the body cam footage so they could get a look at him. The FBI was allegedly sitting outside his parents' house, and this is where they saw Bryan Kohberger in the wee hours of the morning, 12, 1, 2, 3 a.m., coming outside dressed in all black, putting his DNA, like napkins that he used on his mouth, maybe, I'm just throwing things out there, water bottles, forks that he used, in baggies and taking it to the neighbor's trash in order to get his DNA out of his own trash can. And let's not forget, his parents' house, they live on a big piece of property. Everybody in that neighborhood, I'll post up a video right here for y'all to have another look. For him to put his trash in a neighbor's trash can, he had to walk. All of that would have been thrown out because the reason why the FBI agents were out there was because of that DNA. So this was a huge loss for the defense. And if he's the guy, thank God. Now, since then, there's been quite a few new motions that has come out. Interestingly, though, as those motions were being filed, the Judge Hippler, issued a directive asking all of the lawyers to quit filing so many sealed documents. And y'all know from the very beginning, before Bryan Kohberger even made it from Pennsylvania back to Washington, they started putting gag orders. Well, this new judge, remember he had the old judge, which was Judge. This new judge is basically saying, in my own words here, if y'all don't quit putting all these seals and gag orders, this is absolutely ridiculous. Everything is sealed. I mean, he said that doing so runs counter to the public's First Amendment rights to know what's going on in its courts. And I read that and I said, hallelujah, thank you. He also ordered that the lawyers use the least restrictive steps necessary to protect confidential information on the case, like redacting some lines or using initials instead of full names. And the way I'm understanding that, or in my opinion, I'm taking it, is the judge is saying, listen, redacting stuff and sealing stuff it's used for a purpose. You're redacting and sealing everything. It's just too much. Now with that, let's get into these new motions that's been filed. Now you may remember about a year or so ago that Bryan's defense attempted to try to get the DP taken off of the table.
The firing squad ended up on the books because of the difficulty obtaining the drugs to kill somebody. That's why the firing squad came back. Idaho brings it back in 2023. They bring it back because it's not reliable to believe they're always going to be able to get the chemicals to execute somebody. And that's the real problem here. The firing squad hasn't been funded well enough to be built.
I think they're building it right now, as I recall, from the media at least, that the construction's actually underway, but I may be wrong about that.
Well, I haven't talked to the director of the Department of Corrections, and that's probably who I would take my word from if that's actually happening right now.
That request was denied, but now the defense is trying again. They have filed a motion to strike the DP based on the fact that they say that Bryan is on the autism spectrum. Now, like many things in this case, this motion was initially sealed, but it was just unsealed. And in the motion, the defense argued that because of Bryan's autism, he is exposed to an unacceptable risk that a jury will convict him just based on that. They say due to his autism that Bryan has no insight into his own behaviors and emotions. He often rocks back and forth while listening, and he has limited facial expressions. They say that his expressions are sometimes incongruent with what is actually happening around him. They also worry that a juror seeing him engage in any of those behaviors while sitting at his table during the trial may lead them to perceiving him as strange or out of control or even disrespectful. Now, I want to talk about them filing that motion to take the DP off the table because saying that Bryan Kohberger is on the spectrum, which a lot of people are on the spectrum. And I just want to throw this out here, just because you're on the spectrum don't mean you're going to do something like Bryan Kohberger is accused of doing. But I find that very interesting for a few reasons. One, it seems like all of Bryan's defense so far is just trying to find loopholes to get him off versus actually building a defense. And the reason why it seems like that to me is because he has no defense. Maybe he will during the trial. Maybe we're going to find something out new. But it seems like there is no defense. There's no character references. There's no where he was. He was out riding around looking at the stars allegedly that night. That was his alibi. Remember when they drug us on about the whole alibi thing and come to find out the person that was his alibi was the fact that he was just riding around looking at stars. And then allegedly they went back and looked at the weather that night and it was cloudy and you couldn't even see the stars. Allegedly, maybe something new is going to come out in the trial. And I just find it very interesting. And I wonder if they can get the DP off the table. That's when they're going to start trying to take a plea deal or make a plea deal, because right now it doesn't look like the prosecution is open to making a plea deal because the families want to go for the DP. However, if they can get the DP off the table, then they can say, listen, let's save everybody the heartache. He'll plead guilty to these charges and spend life in prison. That's what it looks like, but I don't know. I'm not in their shoes. In a different motion that was filed, though, the defense requested that the court block the use of words like murder and bushy eyebrows. That one got me, okay? They also wanted to block words like psychopath and sociopath from being used at his trial. Bryan's defense claims that to label Bryan with those words denies Bryan's right to a fair trial and the right to be presumed innocent, which the bushy eyebrows, buddy, if the person in the house seen someone with bushy eyebrows and you've got bushy eyebrows, how are you going to block the word bushy eyebrows from the trial? I don't understand. I mean, listen, for all of us that watch the Casey Anthony trial, we know that a defense can throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And sometimes enough sticks to get them off, right? And it seems like that's what's happening here too. Now, they also asked the judge to block the surviving roommate, we'll use the initials DM, from using the words bushy eyebrows to identify Bryan. Why? If he's got bushy eyebrows and he matches the description, I mean, where do they do that at, y'all? I want to block tattoo on neck to identify. What? I mean, anyways, if you remember DM and another surviving roommate, we'll just use the initials BF, were inside the home at the time of the incident. Now, DM, whose bedroom was on the second floor, allegedly came basically face to face with the suspect. She told the investigators that she was woken up by noises around 4 a.m. and she heard a voice say, "There's someone here." She said she also heard what sounded like whimpering coming from Xana's room and a man's voice saying, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." DM said that she had opened her bedroom door. She peeked out like 3 different times. Now, the third time, she said, this is when she saw a man with bushy eyebrows, dressed in black, walk past her door and head towards the sliding back doors of the home. She said that when she went downstairs to BF's room, they both fell asleep. Now, that's new information. As far as we knew before, she went back in her room, closed the door, and fell asleep. Now we're hearing that she went into her other roommate's room that was there, which was on the first floor, and fell asleep. Seems weird. Bryan's defense team believes that the description provided by DM is unreliable and should be excluded from the trial. They say that although she has never formally identified Bryan, describing bushy eyebrows while Bryan is sitting right there during the trial will be as damning to him as pointing to him and saying, that is the man that did this. And to me, that's so wild. When she said she saw a man with bushy eyebrows, Bryan was not identified yet. They didn't even have the DNA yet. That was when they questioned her the day. So if she saw a man with bushy eyebrows and a man is sitting in the hot seat that's got bushy eyebrows, I guess I just don't understand how taking that wording out makes sense. The defense also claims, though, that there are some inconsistencies in DM's description of the intruder. They actually pointed to artwork that was seen on some of her walls in her bedroom at the time that showed all these pictures of eyes with prominent eyebrows, basically making it sound like because she had all this decor in her room that she was imagining this person with bushy eyebrows. And in my opinion, they need to use that as their defense in the trial instead of trying to completely remove the words. It's just, I can't understand it. Now, they also pointed to the fact that DM told the investigators that she had a lot of lucid dreams about being taken or chased, and that the morning of the incident, she said she did not fully understand what was a dream and what wasn't. And in one police interview, she even supposedly said that she thought that the person that she saw was a fireman. So, yeah, now keep in mind, DM is the only known living eyewitness, so she could be a key witness for the prosecution. It is the defense's job to try to discredit her. So that's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to throw out all this extra stuff to make her look like she's lying or she's wrong. Now, I want to throw this out there. This is my personal question of my unprofessional self. I wonder, was she taking something, doing something that night? I cannot help it. Listen, no judgment. It's a college house. It was obviously a party house. There were people in there. The police had been called for loud noises. That's a pretty normal thing that happens when you're in college. And it was rumored that DM, had party favors before and did stuff. Could all be not true. Just throw that out there. But I can't help but to wonder, nothing else would make sense to me of all this extra stuff than if she was twisted on something, if you know what I mean, and she thought she heard these noises, and nobody wants to call the police when they're on something. And I'm wondering if that's what it was. If she was on something and she's trying to reconcile what she saw, but she saw what she saw. Who knows? I guess we'll see what happens during the trial. In court documents filed on February 24th, but have just recently been unsealed, the defense revealed that DNA testing of Madison's left fingernail clippings produced DNA evidence from 3 unknown individuals. Now, we've been hearing a lot about DNA evidence from unknown individuals and the defense talking about this, but we did not know that they were found under her fingernails. Now, parts of this document are still redacted, so the exact findings of the DNA testing aren't totally clear. But the defense indicated that when that unknown DNA was compared to Bryan's, it was inconclusive. The defense is asking the court to limit testimony about this because they believe that it would violate Bryan's right to a fair trial. Basically saying Maddie was found with 3 different males' DNA under her fingernails. When they tested Bryan, it was inconclusive. So leaving the jury into believing it could be him when they're saying it was not him. I want to tell y'all my opinion. I actually don't believe that there was probably any of his DNA under her fingernails, because I think that if Bryan is the guy, he meticulously planned this out. I'm sure he was described dressed in all black. I'm sure with a mask on. I'm sure he had on long sleeves, gloves, the whole shebang. Because that knife sheath only had one single source of DNA on it. It was cleaned by somebody, but somebody didn't get all the DNA. So I doubt that it's his DNA under her fingernails. And if there's other sources of male DNA, she was a young girl living in a house and they had company over all the time. Girl, a hug, anything could have got DNA under her fingernails. She had a male roommate living with her. To me, it doesn't, throw that part out if you want. That don't even make any sense to me. But the court documents say that during the initial grand jury proceedings, that the court heard testimony that a 3-person mixture DNA had been found and that the data from the sample was redacted as to like Mr. Kohberger. So, which means that the statistical likelihood that Bryan is one of the 3 individuals whose DNA was found under these nail clippings was redacted. So kind of, again, left up to your imagination. The documents do say that a witness testified about the meaning of the term inconclusive. But Bryan's defense is now arguing that this testimony, again, that was used as misleading language. Basically, they don't want this term inconclusive to be misinterpreted by the jury during the trial. Bryan's defense also says that at least 4 other unnamed individuals were also tested and they all came back inconclusive. So there's no telling. Maddie and Kaylee were literally out at the bar that night. Do y'all remember the videos? They went to go to the food truck. I mean, of course there's male DNA. We're not talking about skin that was under her nails, just a mixture, meaning it could have been picked up from anywhere. That's the way I'm reading it. But now the defense has supposedly went out and got their own expert, which we see happen all the time. We saw it a lot with the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. And this expert that the defense hired said that this is not Bryan's DNA. It completely excluded him. So you've got the prosecution's that says it comes back inconclusive, and now you've got Bryan's private expert or professional saying he's excluded. Again, my opinion on that is it doesn't surprise me that whether his DNA is under, I would be surprised if it was under her nails, because I think if he's the guy, he planned this so well. However, it is interesting that the defense is focusing on this, especially given the fact that it recently came out that unknown persons also left DNA on a handrail in the home and a glove outside. Now, could this go to the theory that there was more than one person at the home that night? I mean, a lot of people think that if Bryan did this, he did not do it alone, that he had other people or at least another person with him. Or is it just because it was a college house that had plenty of parties and is totally unrelated to what happened that night? What do y'all think about that? Now, I think that this is a really good time to remember the fact that for at least 2 years, both sides have talked about the sheer amount of evidence in this case, okay? I mean, literally the prosecution stated back in 2023 when Ann was asking them to turn over all of the discovery that they had, that 10,000 pages of reports of evidence against Bryan Kohberger, okay? Bryan Kohberger is not just this guy that a single source of DNA that could have been planted and found in a genealogy thing. The amount of evidence that the state claims that they have against him, 10,000 pages of reports, 10,200 photos, 9,000 tips, and 51 terabytes of video. 51 terabytes of video, audio, and digital materials, which is an unimaginable amount. For all of y'all that are like computer people out there, you're tech savvy, you have to hear this and go, 51 terabytes of photos, audio, videos, and digital evidence. That is a lot. Now, with all these new motions, the unsealing of old ones and redactions, I think it just goes to show that we definitely do not know all of the evidence that there is, and we probably will not know the majority of it until the trial happens. Bryan's trial right now is still scheduled to start on August 11th of this year, 2025. And what do I think? Well, I don't know about a lot of things, but I definitely do not think that this new Judge Hippler is going to extend it anymore. And I also think that if they can get the DP off the table, we may see something different. But right now, I don't know. What do y'all think? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. What do you think about the 3 different DNA sources that was found under Maddie's fingernails? Whether it was his or not, does it make a difference to you? Especially knowing that they were out at the bar, that they have a male roommate, that they had people in and out of their house, or is it important? What do y'all think about taking the DP off the table for the autism argument? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Other than that, I love y'all. Thank y'all so much for watching this video, and I will see y'all in the next one. Y'all have a great weekend. Bye.